I'm Sue Stockdale, and welcome to a preview of the second series of Access to Inspiration podcast, aimed at bringing you conversations with people from a diverse range of backgrounds. People who may be unlike you, and from whom we can learn from and gain inspiration about what is possible to achieve in our work and our lives. Over the next few weeks, I will be speaking to 7 new guests, including an astronaut who has travelled over 2.8 million miles in 126 Earth orbits and has logged over 190 hours in space. I'll be speaking to a cruise director who has responsibility for looking after 3,000 guests on board ship every day, as well as 2 dynamic young women from Hawaii and San Diego who are influential in the world of animal conservation. You will learn how a career path is not always a straight line to your dream job, why we may be more harmful than helpful to animals when we visit them in wild places, and what amazing scientific research is being undertaken on the International Space Station. But before we dive into Series 2, several listeners have asked me to share a small story of my own. So, keep listening to hear me explain to former TV news anchor Roger Rocka why we began the Access to Inspiration podcast. As usual, if you enjoy the podcast, please recommend it to other people who may also get inspiration from it as well, or leave us a review on iTunes.
My name is Roger Rocka, and we're talking today with Sue Stockdale. Sue is a polar adventurer, an athlete, a motivational speaker, and a businesswoman. She was the first British woman to ski to the magnetic North Pole back in 1996. And we'll hear more about that. But first, hi, Sue.
Hi, Roger. Good to speak to you.
Nice to speak with you. We're going to be talking today about Sue's latest enterprise, which is something called Access to Inspiration. But before we get to that, I want to find out a little more about how you got to where you are. How did you get started with your adventurism? How did you begin to sort of step outside the boundaries of what most of us do and start to do extraordinary things, like, of course, skiing to the magnetic North Pole, which is not something most of us have even thought about?
Well, Roger, it's all down to seeing adverts in the newspaper. I've always had a love of adventure and trying new things. And way back in 1996, I saw an advert that said wanted 10 novice Arctic explorers to ski 350 miles to the magnetic North Pole. Well, my immediate thought was, wow, that sounds somewhere cold. I wasn't even quite sure where it was. But when I sent off for the application form, it came back as a brochure, and it was all pictures of men, and it said, "Are you man enough for the ultimate challenge?" Well, you can imagine that was like a red rag to a bull, and it really motivated me to apply and be part of the team. And luckily, I got through all the selection process and became one of the team members. So that's how it all started.
I guess we should say you weren't a couch potato before that. You had already been an athlete. What are some of the things you had done prior to that?
Yes, I enjoy running, and I competed competitively in track and field athletics, running 3,000 metres, and I was very proud to represent my country, Scotland. What it really taught me, though, was about hard work and perseverance and never giving up. And I think those are qualities that can really be useful today in business as well.
And that took you sort of to different places in the world where you worked, for example, with the UN for a while and took part in some other things like that.
Well, in all those experiences, Roger, I've really seen the power of being inspired by people around me. I was working in a war zone with the United Nations, and, we were there to really try and make a difference in country where there was obviously a war going on. And it was seeing the resilience and the perseverance of not only the fellow employees around me that were trying to do the best job possible, but those that were in country really trying to bring their lives together. So I'm just always fascinated about how ordinary people can really be a real inspiration to others. And I think we don't necessarily get enough of that in our lives.
So you were inspired by the things you observed. How did that then switch into you realizing that you could take part in inspiring others?
After that North Pole expedition, I didn't want that amazing experience that I'd had to just be photographs in an album. So I thought, imagine if I could perhaps share some of my story of what I had encountered and how I'd managed to be successful in something that I never imagined was possible maybe that could help inspire other people to get to their own North Pole and whatever that means for them. So I started up in a business as a motivational speaker initially. And I realized that, everybody really gets a lot of benefit from being inspired. Of course, you don't have to be on a stage to do that. There are people around us all the time that inspire us. Sometimes it's about the meaningful conversations I've found that I have with them. And a lot of the work I do today is as an executive coach. And, when you end up having a conversation with somebody where they just tell you a story about something they've tried or the hardship they've endured and how they've overcome it, it's so inspiring to be able to hear their stories. And they're ordinary people doing ordinary things. And I think that we can all benefit from speaking to and learning from people around us.
Well, you've been doing this now for a number of years successfully. And the latest thing that you are involved in, which we want to talk about now, is this thing called Access to Inspiration. Give us an overview of what that is.
Yes, it's really building a community where people do get access to inspiration in many different ways. So we're launching a podcast series which will provide inspiration. I'm talking to people from a number of diverse backgrounds, including a professor of brain science, somebody who's a naturalist and a glass blower, and another person who supports people in the dairy industry to manage their stress and to be more effective. And these people are from all different backgrounds and from all over the world. So I'm going to find out about what inspires them to do what they do and to hear some of the stories and the challenges that they've encountered and how they overcome them. So listeners, I really hope that you enjoy Series 2. And if you haven't yet listened to the podcasts in Series 1, please do go back and listen to them again.